Hello, Yawning Angel back again with another video, this time something slightly different. I want to take you through a personal journey of my Amiga top 10 games. Now these are games from back in the day, not any of the new modern games which are out. These are games basically that drew me to the Amiga and made me really proud to own it as a machine. For the games were just phenomenal back then, especially moving from an 8-bit system like the Spectrum, which I did. Now, like I said, this is a personal journey. There might be some surprises in here. There's probably some games which are maybe a bit predictable appearing in the list. But, you know, like I said, these are games that appealed to me, and I'll give you my reasons why I liked them so much. So without further ado, let's get on with it. Oh, but before we do get going, I must say, there were some games that I really wanted in my top 10, but sadly they just didn't make the cut. So let's have a quick look at those. Games that didn't make the top 10. Speedball 1. Powermonger. Theme Park. And as a surprise to most, especially rose-tinted Spectrum, this title, Xenon 2 Mega Blast. At number 10, it's Supremacy. Supremacy, released in 1990 by Virgin for the Amiga, the ST, the Commodore 64 and 128 and IBM PC compatibles. This is an intergalactic space strategy game where you fight for dominance across a number of planets. Each time you face off against one of the 4 given opponents, and each opponent is more difficult and more dangerous than the last. Understanding your way around the screen is important. There are a number of icons. This is your government screen icon. You've got your buy screen icon, navigation screen, planet formatter, platoon management, cargo bay access, planet surface, combat control screen, spying screen as well, and your disk management screen, and a large window here for messages which are relayed to you throughout the game. So loading up a save game here, we can see the government screen for my starbase. This shows me all my resources that are available, my population, my energy, food, etc. Planets are listed in this table. Planets in red belong to the enemy, planets in green belong to me, and clicking on these icons here you get to see ships that are in orbit, on the surface, or in your docking bay. You can purchase ships as well, which you need, farming ships, you've got battle cruisers, you've got your solar generators, planet formatters, cargo ships, and of course mining ships, all generating resources that you will need for the battle ahead. Clicking on the combat control screen icon, you can see for your chosen planet, your platoons and the number of troops you have available. You can control your troop aggression level, which you will need to do during some of the battles. You can also go into your platoon management screen. Here's a platoon I've created that's got 200 troops in it. That's drawn from your pool of civilians. You're shown the number of credits. You're shown the armor that is available to your troops, from basic marine loadout to something a little more substantial that can withstand a nuclear attack, and of course the different weapons available to your troops. This is also shown how much this costs and how much it will cost to equip this platoon with all this equipment, which we've now done here. So Supremacy is all about managing resources. It's a resource management game. You need to make sure you've got enough food to feed your population so you don't get negative population growth. You've got to control your taxes properly so your population morale is good enough. You've got to make sure you've got enough military. You've got to make sure you've got enough resources to equip that military, and also enough credits in order to buy relevant equipment to keep each planet sustained. And as soon as you start to get into battle with your enemy, everything starts to get very hectic very quickly. But if you can stay on top of it, it's a really rewarding game, and it is enjoyable going down to the finite detail of, you know, buying your ship, getting crew in your ship, fueling your ships up, launching them like we're going to do here. We're going to select a farming vessel which we're going to launch from our starbase. and we're going to select a planet, in this case Turtle, for it to fly over to, and then once it gets there, because you've got to wait for it to actually fly there, the further the planet is away from your starbase, the longer this takes. As soon as it gets in orbit, you can then tell it to land. It will then go into a docking bay. Once it's in a docking bay, you then have to move excuse me, you then have to move it to the surface of the planet and then activate it. There's a lot going on. I thoroughly enjoyed this game back in the day, and I don't think it got the recognition it deserved. There's a lot going on and a lot to manage, but it's a glossy game. I can never find any faults with this. It draws you in, and even though there's no real animation going on the screen apart from the incidental bit here and there, it's a great game. It just keeps your mind active, and you're constantly trying to stay one step ahead of your enemy, with the ultimate goal of winning out that galaxy and moving on to a more difficult and dangerous opponent. At number 9, it's Cannon Fodder. So, Cannon Fodder, a game that needs no introduction, surely having cemented itself in the Amiga Hall of Fame. Loading in a save game here. As you can see, I failed to keep Jules alive long enough. I love the way the tombstones appear as troops die. It gives you a real sense of loss when you lose troops in battle. So diving into mission 5 here. I love this game. Here I've got the 3 guys starting to work their way through this mission, and you have to keep playing the missions in order to learn them, because they get more and more difficult and incredibly fiendishly difficult as you work through the game. And it's working out those strategies that keeps drawing me back to this game. It's graphically glorious, the audio is fantastic, and just the gameplay is brilliant. I love this here, the way that you can actually split your troop out, and send one guy off to well, in this case, we're going to blow up this building. So Elroy's going to lob a grenade here. Come on, Elroy, there he goes. But you've still got enemy troops coming in, and I've got Hector and Mac there doing a nice rearguard defense action. So we can dispose of those troops, and we can get everyone across the river. I love also in this game the way that the enemy troops just seem to throw themselves at your hail of bullets that are raining down on them. Nothing seems to slow them down. But in saying that keeps you on your toes. There's no room for complacency here. So we're going to bring Hector and Mac back across the river, and we're going to join them up with Elroy so we can get on with this mission. And what we need to do is collect some of these grenades and bombs that are lying around here. So we'll get Elroy in on the case. Elroy charges in, hail of gunfire, gets a bit carried away and blows up some of the munitions that he wants. You've got to watch out for falling roofs and falling debris. But anyway, he can pick up those. I think he's got some rocket launchers there. So we can bring your troops back together to form that cohesive fighting force. So here we are, the three musketeers back together, mowing their way through wave upon wave of enemy troops and swimming across rivers. It's a beautiful game, and there's just no end of enjoyment in this. Thoroughly well done by Sensible Software. I love this to bits. At number 8, it's Alien Breed Special Edition. Alien Breed Special Edition, brought to us by Team 17 back in '92. A wonderful top-down gauntlet-style shooter where collecting as many keys as possible was key to your success, literally. The game was littered with some amazing graphics, some great sound effects, and just the sound on this terminal was amazing.
Welcome to Intex Systems.
Welcome to Intex Systems. That voice used to send a shiver up my spine back in the day. Coming in here and seeing all the weapons that you can buy and that you're going to need to buy if you're going to succeed in this game. You need to get enough credits together to buy weapons, ammo and keys, because you're going to need them. So all of a sudden, what is effectively a top-down shooter becomes a resource management game. You're working your way through this, not just mindlessly killing aliens. You're picking up keys in order to get into rooms to get more ammo. You can't just sit here and hose lock your fire button and just kill wave after wave of aliens. No, you've really got to think about what you're doing.
Player 1 requires first aid.
Being reminded by the system when you need first aid was always quite harrowing, I found, because there would never be any first aid nearby. You couldn't just keep shooting alien after alien because there seems to be some sort of infinite respawn on these things, so trying to clear a room is nigh on impossible, but you've got to get those resources, and eventually you die. Anyway, moving on from here, I've just shown you this because this is a prime example of where you've got to manage your resources. There's lots of rooms here that you can go into to get stuff, but on this first level you can only really go in to these last 2 areas because you'll open 3 doors and use 3 keys and then pick 3 keys up as you go in. Same with the next one with 2 keys. You pick up your credits, get your first aid, and get out of here. Keep an eye on the top right of the screen to see how many keys you've got. And we're going to go into this next room. Key, ammo, key. That's it. Up through these. You're picking up money and keys. All really important. You really do need to collect those credits as well if you're going to go back to that terminal and buy some more of those weapons. Here's what happens if you don't manage those keys. So I dive in here, pick up a load of money, use more keys. Oh, a dead end. Right, I've got 1 key left if you look in the top right hand corner. Try to go up through here. I can't. And now I'm stuck. Ha! At number 7, it's Dreamweb. Dreamweb is a dark and foreboding cyberpunk top-down point-and-click adventure with very sinister overtones. In this game you play as an anti-hero called Ryan, set in a futuristic and dystopian city. He's been plagued by dreams from an entity known as the Dreamweb and is tasked to kill and deliver 7 evils who basically manifest themselves as individuals within the game, and you have to hunt them down and destroy them. So for me, this is a wonderfully well thought out game, a great backstory, wonderfully detailed graphics. This is the AGA version that I'm playing here. If you've got the original box version of this, there's a novella in there called The Diary of a Madman, which kind of describes Ryan's descent into madness and the dreams he's been having. It really does set the scene for the game. Like I said, graphics are gorgeousness. It's a top-down point-and-click adventure. The music really does add to the mood of the game, giving you that dark cyberpunk, almost Blade Runner-esque feel, and that is something that's been said about this game. It looks like it's been quite heavily influenced by Blade Runner. Within the game you pretty much do have to click on everything, collect stuff as you find it, and try to get different things to interact with other things, move your way around the city. Some people say the story is quite linear, but trust me, there are very few clues within the game, and you find yourself constantly coming back to locations you've already explored and searched, picking up different items and trying different things with different things. Yes, it sounds a bit ambiguous, but seriously, this is a game that you really have to play and experience and just enjoy in its fullness. Loading up a saved game of mine here. This is pretty much where I am now, almost towards the end of the game. You can see how graphically gory this is. This is a very adult game with a very adult theme running through it, and it really doesn't pull any punches when showing you stuff, basically. The story builds up in its climax, as it were, and I've yet to crack it. I've yet to actually solve the final part of the Dreamweb. I really am reluctant to look at guides online because this is such a great game. I just enjoy exploring it and trying to work things out for myself. And if you like this kind of thing, I thoroughly recommend you give it a look. At number 6, it's Slam Tilt. Slam Tilt, possibly the greatest pinball game on the Amiga ever. This AGA-only game was absolutely stunning, and for its time really pushed the Amiga to its limits and really showed what the machine was capable of in terms of this type of game. There are 4 glorious tables in this game. Night of the Demon is one of my favourites. Wonderful graphics. Not only the table itself, but you've really got to watch the animations that are going on the scoreboard at the top of the screen. And these can sometimes be distracting, leading you to actually miss the ball sometimes. But you know what? It is so worth it. Next up, my next favourite table is the Ace of Space. Wonderful play on words there. 3 flippers on this table. Wonderful graphics again, and great mood music just to draw you in. And once again, some superb animations that take place. in that score table at the top of the screen. Always worth keeping an eye out for what's going on in there. I will admit things can be a bit slow sometimes to start, and it takes a while for the table to get going, but once you start unlocking features and different mini games within each table, things really come alive. The music will change its pace, turn it into a pumping techno soundtrack on some of the tables, and things just really get going. In multi-ball mode, which I don't have filmed unfortunately, but the table switches to a high resolution mode, so you get to see the whole table on screen at once. Things get really hectic then, and depending on the quality of your monitor, it can get a bit flickery, but it's so worth it. You really do feel your heart racing when things unlock and open up within this game. It just keeps drawing you back time and time again for more and more, and you're always trying to find, have you unlocked everything, and is there anything that you're missing? So you just keep playing, trying to unlock different parts of each table. It's glorious. The other two tables on this game are the Pirate, which is this one, a jaunty nautical theme to it. Not my most favourite table, it has to be said, but if you enjoy pirates and pinball, this is your thing. And finally, Mean Machines, a grinding heavy metal soundtrack for this table, which is all about big cars and big engines and explosions. I love it. At number 5, it's Flimbos Quest. Flimbos Quest, not unique to the Amiga, and it appeared on the C64 as well. But, cutesy platformer. This is, I think, the only cutesy platformer in my top 10. A great game. I used to play this on my A500 back in the day. And you know what? If you enjoy walking around as a small child trying to find letters for a spell to help you eventually defeat an evil wizard to get your girlfriend back, and you enjoy shooting cute things in the face with your magic wand, for Nerk, this is definitely a game for you. Graphically, this is a glorious game. Even on the A500, it was stunning. It's a cute game all round. Cute graphics. The music is light, bouncy and uplifting. It's got a definite feel-good factor to it. There's no gore or wanton destruction in this. It's all just kind of done in a fun way. There's some secret rooms in here as well, or not so secret because there's doors, obviously, you can see. But you can go in and find these rooms full of sacks of money, and if you collect them in the right order, it kind of increases the amount of cash that you get, which enables you to buy extra letters to complete the spell on each level and move to the next level. Each level gets more and more difficult, but at the end of the day, it's a fun game to play, and if you just want to waste a few minutes and bounce around in Flimbos Quest, well, why not? Have some fun. At number 4, it's Syndicate. Right from that opening beat of the music and those rendered graphics, this set the scene for this cyberpunk adventure, a wonderfully adult-themed, spy game basically, where pretty much anything went. There were no morals here. You just had to win at any cost, upgrading your agents, going from mission to mission. And all the missions varied as well. Some of them you needed the softly approach, and other missions, like I think this one we're loading in here, it's pretty much hell for leather, and if it moves, shoot it, which is why I enjoyed this game so much. Obviously, the more credits you spend, you can unlock extra information on each mission. I usually found that little mini-map in the bottom right-hand corner there quite useless, so I just used to, jump straight in. Oh, and of course, upgrading your agents, getting all the different weapons, and after each mission, being able to go in and reload those weapons, restock, fix up your agents. And then, of course, you had all the modifications as well, which you could apply to each agent. So you really felt that you were investing in each agent, and almost did it become personal between you and each agent in your team. I don't know, maybe it was just me, maybe I'm a bit weird. But yeah, those mods, upgrading so you got the version 3 eventually of everything. And, the extra enhancements really did make a difference in the game. If your agents could move faster, they could outrun enemy agents or catch them, easier. It really did help. And I just loved the thought and the detail that went into this as a game. So this mission I've loaded up here, it's basically a just destroy all enemy agents, and you send your guys wandering off around the town. You keep keep them together as a group. You could work them individually if you wanted to, but I usually try and keep them all together. And inevitably, enemy agents would find you and open fire first, and you'd retaliate appropriately. The minigun, always the weapon of choice for me. Obviously, there was the Gauss gun as well, the rocket launcher. The flamethrower for those more subtle missions, and just the thought that went into the destruction of your enemies in this game. It was quite gory and quite horrific. And back in the day, it was like, oh my god, is this for real? But yes, it was. And by today's standards, this is pretty mild. But back then, it was, I think, of its time. And an enjoyable game. I still enjoy playing it to this day, because sometimes you just want to wander around with miniguns, blowing up things and destroying enemy agents, and also seeing how tough your guys are and if you can actually get all of your agents back out of a mission once you've finished it, because that was key. Completing the mission in game and sometimes just getting back out of the city could be a challenge in itself, many a time thwarted by having a car blow up that I was in and destroying all my agents right at the end of a mission. But all part of the fun, and this is a great game. I love it to bits. At number 3, it's the Bards Tale, Tales of the Unknown. The Bards Tale, not necessarily a game which stretches the Amiga's abilities, not even the humble A500. And this game existed on the C64 as well. Oh my god, I think it even existed on the Spectrum. But this game I lost so much time to back in the day. I was an avid role player anyway, and this was one of the first games where I could actually role play by myself. Oh, that doesn't sound too weird, does it? But you know what I mean? I could create my party. Every single individual in the party I could craft, and just adventuring in this, just exploring the map. And anyone who played a game like this back in the day, I think, made use of graph paper as well, because you actually sketched out the map as you went around the different dungeons. I had pages and pages of maps, because not only was I heavily into Bards Tale 1, I did Bards Tale 2 and Bards Tale 3 as well. But Bards Tale 1 is the game which, my fond memories lie. They lie in this game, walking around the streets of Skara Brae. When I first got this game again, and I just jumped straight back into it, and I kind of knew where everything was because I'd played it so much back in the day. I think even now I've kind of memorized the streets of Skara Brae. If I remember correctly, they changed slightly between the games, but even though this is graphically quite basic, it's still a lot of fun. It draws you in. You really need to know the spells of your magic casters in the party, all the abilities. If you've got a bard in the party, how their songs will affect your outcome in terms of fighting and survival. And the more powerful your characters, of course, the more damage you're doing as you go through the streets of Skara Brae and then going through the different dungeons, which have their own difficulty level as well. Also, you need to know what taverns to go into, sometimes to enter a dungeon, like this one here. You need to know that you have to order wine, because that will get you down into the cellar. Once you're down in the cellar, you'll be able to then start adventuring in that dungeon. Obviously, the monsters in each dungeon increase in their level of difficulty, so by the time you're coming towards the end of the game, the fights do take their toll on your characters, and you really need to know how to heal people quite quickly and how to use maybe your spellcasters more effectively to do a lot of the damage before your actual warriors and that pile in. And that's another thing I love about this game. It's about strategy as well, and you learn that as you go through it, and as you basically get your bum kicked time after time, you then come up with different ways of dealing with different monsters, trying out different spells. I think my only gripe about the game is you didn't really have much control as to who cast first or who did what first. So you could build up, your attack plan, and then you'd find the most vital part of that attack wouldn't be executed till right at the end of the combat, by which point in time, sometimes it's too late for some of your characters. But you'd just reload your save game, go back to where you started from, and pile back in again. Wonderful stuff. I love this. And, if you're into role-playing of any kind, seriously, give Bards Tale a look. Wonderful game. At number 2, it's Speedball 2, Brutal Deluxe. Speedball 2, Brutal Deluxe, another Bitmap Brothers classic that needs no introduction. This game I spent so much money replacing joysticks through playing this game. I broke so many quick-shot joysticks on this, just trying to move your characters around the screen quickly enough to, make a move, throw a ball, get a goal or whatever. This game is fantastic, graphically glorious, the soundtrack is fantastic, anybody want an ice cream, it's just great, the way you can build up your team, transfer in new players, and that's when the game really gets going, as soon as you can bring in different players that are vastly more superior in terms of their skill level than the stock standard players. The game literally unlocks and just becomes so fluid, and you find yourself, in the league or the cup, working your way up through the fixtures and beating team after team, increasing your team's abilities, upgrading them. It's a great game. It's such a monumental climb up from the original Speedball, which in itself, don't get me wrong, was a great game, which I loved as well. But it is Speedball 2 that does it for me. So a bit of an admission here. I think it was back in the Game Boy Advance days, there was a version of Speedball 2 that came out for the Game Boy Advance. I didn't have a Game Boy Advance, and I brought one specifically just to play Speedball 2 on, which I did, and I played the game to bits, basically, and I got Brutal Deluxe, the team you play, all the way through to win the cup, and then I think I got rid of the Game Boy Advance because I had no other interest in any other GBA games. So playing a game here, I loaded up this semi-final, because this is where I am at the moment in my current playthrough of this game. And you go up against Super Nashuan is the team you play against here. And I'd not played for a while, and basically they did a number on me, and I wanted to get some really interesting footage for this video, and trust me, this is not it. So you've got to make do with basically Brutal Deluxe being defeated here, which is a bit of a shame, but it just to show you, the level of the gameplay, the great animation, just as I've already mentioned, the sound to this, the sound effects are wonderful. It's a masterclass of how to do a game properly. And for me, this is what the Amiga is about. I know this game appeared on the ST as well, but for me, it's the Amiga which wins out for this version of the game. Wonderful stuff. Anyway, I'm off to go and get an ice cream. I think I had a sense of loyalty to my goalie, Barry. I never transfer Barry out. I always stick with him right to the end, but I transfer the other players out. Because sometimes you've just got to upgrade those players in the most cost-effective way possible, and that is to bring in an external player with infinitely more skill and power, like I'm doing here. But the game isn't just about what goes on here in the gym and in the transfer window. Obviously, what goes on the pitch is important as well. You need to collect coins on the pitch to give you enough money to enable you to do those upgrades and get those transfers done. Also, there'll be extra things on the pitch that you can run across, which will either, magnetize the opponent's players to the pitch, reverse direction, give you a bit of a boost or a speed up. But it's been able to pick those up as you're running past them and turn quickly enough, which enabled me to break so many joysticks back in the day. Also, a little frustration with the game is that you can't see all your players. So if you throw a ball up the pitch, you're kind of hoping that there'll be some of your players there ready to pick it up and run with it. Sometimes they're not, and you've got to scrabble around for players as the computer controls which player it's going to select for you. It can sometimes pick up the wrong player, but I think that's the same with all these games, isn't it? It can be difficult making sure you get a suitable player to do your bidding for you on the field of play. But Speedball 2, wonderful game, great graphics, great sound, an adrenaline-pumping sports game for computer fans the world over, and I heartily recommend it. And at number 1, it's Populous. Populous, another iconic game on the 16-bit systems, and it was Populous which about 3 years ago got me into the retro computing scene. I was sat one day thinking, I really fancy playing a game like Populous, or Populous. And long story short, I went out and bought an Amiga and just got back into playing Populous again. It was this which got me into the retro computing scene again, and the rest, as they say, is history. Back in the day, I played this game loads on my A500. Very fond memories of when I was living at home with my parents. My bedroom was above the lounge, and my mum often on a Friday night coming upstairs and wondering what that thumping noise was. It's because I had my speakers sat on the floor next to my computer desk, and obviously just with the heartbeat of Populous just playing away, I was oblivious to it, but downstairs below my bedroom, everyone who was in the lounge could quite clearly hear it. Do you know, I've never really finished this game. I enjoyed dipping into it and playing it. And despite it being graphically quite simple, for back in the day, it was pretty advanced, for me anyway. And I still enjoy watching the animations on it, building your population up across different types of terrain, be it desert, be it snow, be it deciduous forest, and thwarting your opponent's ability to progress as well. There was something inanely satisfying about doing that. Wonderfully crafted game, so well thought out. Obviously Populous 2 built on it, and it is another classic game in its own right, but it's the original Populous for me, a game that keeps drawing me back, and it has just kind of got that one more go factor. Moving your way through the worlds, obviously getting the code for each world, and then, you know, just keying that in like I'm doing here, and diving into another world where different sorts of terrain and abilities are available. It's the same game through and through, but just with enough variation to make it interesting and keep you coming back. The game does have its drawbacks, I think, in the modern age, really. Graphics looking a bit dated, but also if you're running this on a flat screen monitor, this game wasn't designed for that, of course. It was designed for a CRT display, and that's where it works best. On modern displays, some of the graphics get a little bit lost, and it becomes a little bit difficult to get that sense of depth when doing things on screen. Like in this snow landscape, for instance, where there isn't so much of a clear definition between, you know, the dwellings that are being built and the landscape. Might just be me, might just be my eyes, but that's what I find on the monitor I'm running currently. But you know, the game's still enjoyable regardless. Let's not forget how much fun it was hampering your opponent's ability to build, and if you could mess up their land in some way. Like here, the indicator at the back of the screen is showing me that I can now use marshland, but I can also use earthquakes as well. And here I am sizing up to unleash an earthquake on this area. Click the button. There it goes. Look at that. You could also do the same for marshland. Just select an area of their ground and turn it into a swampy mess. Really useful. Of course, you could create your knights and send your knights into their land to basically mess them up, burn their houses and kill their population. Then you had volcanoes, and I think you could flood the land as well. So satisfying when you were hampering your opponents while building up your population, and I think that was the appeal of the game. A bit of bullying, if you like, but at a tasteful level, I must admit, and oh so enjoyable. And that is it. Thank you ever so much for watching this. Did you agree with my top 10 or not? Leave some comments down below and let me know your thoughts. Thank you for your time. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you like what I do, subscribe to my channel. I usually do a lot of AMOS programming videos, and I'll be back on track with those soon. Don't worry, because I know there's a lot of people enjoy those. But doing something like this was a bit of fun and a bit of a break for me. Coming up, my next video may be a Spectrum video, and then we're back on the AMOS trail. But until then, whatever you do, take care of yourselves and keep it retro.